Hey guys, how's it going? Another wonderful day on the Roy Durham Show! Yeah! Okay, so this is like my third shoot on this video, guys. I gotta tell you, I'm getting used to this stuff finally. It's exciting, a very exciting time. But today's topic, so today's topic is going to be about the deep state. And I like this topic. It's very interesting. It's an involved topic. It's very big and wide. And it's really needs to be done in a series. Like, there are some concepts we really need to go over. And you really need to know this stuff. It's so important because this is a thing that impacts your everyday life in very subtle ways and very overt ways even. So, let's start with the bare bones basic, okay? So, what is the deep state? The deep state is basically an internal organ of your government, okay? This is something that develops over a long period of time, maybe even short period, depending how much power it can grab within a time span. But every single government, at some point in time, develops a deep state. And the bigger that government is, the bigger the deep state is going to end up being. It's basically this thing, this organization that has all these people and resources that are looking out for themselves. They're not accountable to me and you. They never will be. They strive to never be accountable to anyone but themselves. And they work in such a way that they want to operate everything to their advantage. It's always in their own personal interest. They guide policy, propaganda. Nothing is done with you in mind. It's just done with their mind. The nicest analogy I can put forth with the deep state is like this. Imagine the government is like a wild animal. And when it's small, it's harmless. It's like a small baby bear or a small baby tiger. It might attack your leg. It might try and paw at you a little bit. It can't do anything. It's more cute and adorable than anything else. But then all of a sudden, it gets older, gets bigger, gets a little bit more wild, a little bit more ferocious. And what this thing ends up doing eventually is that it develops this black heart, this very evil thing. And it's a twisted heart that contorts itself in such a way to best suit the animal it resides within. And so it begins to develop its own deep state, like a thumbprint, if you will, unique to itself. So let's look at what I would consider to be a great historical example of how a deep state had come into being. So back in the Soviet Union days, when the Soviet Union first started off, it was a government by and for the proletariat people. Okay, they created a government that was meant to bring about this socialistic or communistic desire, this utopia, if you will, to the whole populace. And the idea was that we're going to use the government as a resource, as a tool, to make everyone better, to make everyone more uniform, and make society better. If you were a factory worker, you got an upgrade in your job. You got more free time, you got more pay, everything was hustling. And let's say you were in a poor community. All of a sudden, now you got more resources distributed to you. Because it's a brand new small government, okay? It is grabbing from existing resources and pouring it into areas where they think it needs to go to. And it's altruistic in the beginning. In the beginning, it's always like, for the people, by the people, always. But then as time rolls on, it gets more power. It starts to grow. It gets bigger. Then you run into the 1950s, 1960s era of the Soviet Union. After World War II, Stalin's in power, and he's got the muscle and the might. Okay, this guy's so big, he is the head of the deep state. The government no longer answers to the people. It answers to those who run the deep state. For that time period, it was Stalin. If Stalin didn't like you, he had you killed. Period. KGB would be sent out, and they would start murdering people left and right. The Politburo at one point answered the people of that country at one point in time. But then as the deep state got more power, they ignored the people. They started listening to those who were part of the deep state. The Soviet Politburo, I believe, had about 2,000 or so people in it. And by the time Stalin's regime ended, of the original people that were part of the Politburo, almost more than half of them got killed. Supposedly less than 100 of the 2,000 died of natural causes, but the rest were basically just shot dead. Because Stalin didn't like them. Actually, there was this crazy atmosphere where this thing would happen where Stalin would run up and he would give a big speech. And after the speech, people would be standing up, to be clapping for about 40 minutes. And the reason why they would clap 40 minutes is because they knew for a fact the first guy to stop clapping would probably die. A miserable death. But that's the deep state right there, an example of it. So let's look at a modern day example of our government, more modern one. Let's put this back in about 2003 when the Iraq War was going on and Bush Jr. was in power. Okay, so we're going out, we're stomping the crap out of the Iraqi government. We're doing a huge regime change. We're going to put in pro-Western allies, put them in power and everything, okay? Well, while we're doing that, we've got the deep state operating in the background. They're looking to enrich themselves the entire time. So that's when Halliburton, big oil companies, get in to get these massive reconstruction contracts to oversee all these massive rebuilding efforts, sucking in all the government money to replace all the things that just got destroyed and blown up. War is a beautiful thing for the deep state. It's a great thing for them because this gives them opportunity to power grab, to get resources quickly with very few questions asked. Okay? And what's worse is that majority of the actors are well hidden. And they have to be. Because if they weren't well hidden, we would see them. And we would start questioning their actions. We would ask if this is this okay? Is this moral? Is this something where we really want to go to? And what's even worse is because we don't even see them, they may begin to interject themselves upon our culture, our societal views. So this is when you get the fear-mongering. Imagine it's 1930s. Hitler just got power in Germany. Okay, and you're one of the citizens. You read the local, German newspaper, and you find out, for whatever reason, there are Polish soldiers shooting at, German civilians. And remember, this is in the context of just getting out of World War I here. Okay? This upsets you. This creates a rie in you. Like, how dare they do this to us? Those horrible Polish people. Well, the reality is that the German government, the Nazi government at that time, they took Nazi soldiers, dressed them up as Polish soldiers, and unleashed them on their own populace. So that way, the average citizen would be riled up, and they would start backing the government's initiative to go ahead and retake Poland and absorb them into their own regime. And that's what ended up happening. It happens throughout the entire time, throughout history. The deep state, the aspect of the government right here, who stops being accountable to the people, who stops listening to them, who starts manipulating them, who starts grabbing resources for their own sake. To hell with everyone else. It's about me. It's about my group. It's about my clique. It's about my power, my authority. It's all me, mine, mine. And everyone gets ran over in the process. The populace gets manipulated and confused. That's how you have the rise of fascism. That's how you have the rise of communism. That's how you have these super nationalistic people that are willing to do everything in their power to protect and help the state because maybe they benefited from it. Maybe there's a perceived benefit from it. Maybe there's some kind of impulse that the state has created to make that person want to feel that way, to do that stuff. And they take advantage of those people. They become I don't want to necessarily say the useful idiots, but at times definitely. But by and large, a majority of people end up falling in line with whatever notion that they want to put forth. If you feel as though that it's important to have a certain policy in place, do not be surprised if you see a more shadowy effort, if you will, backing that policy into the public atmosphere, and they decide to make an interest of you to go along with it, so that way you can be a part of their effort to change the whole policy and the whole game and everything. Now, this isn't always nefarious, okay? This is sometimes, local groups and local people trying to get their voice heard on a certain issue. But you'd be surprised how often it's like these bigger, more shadowy organizations that want to go ahead and have their views put out there or create a view out there that enables their interests to benefit. So let's say you are dead set against crime, and you've got lots of jails and everything being overcrowded. And so now all of a sudden you're hearing on the news like this cry for expansion of the prison system, okay, to actually humanely house the inmates, okay? Well, the people who may have backed that news story, who may have gave them the funding to run that news story, may have been a giant private company who works hand in hand with the government to create these private prisons. And so they're helping to put out that story. They're financing the media outlets to go ahead and run that story and get a new jail built. So that way they can expand their contract with the government and get more resources from the government. It's a very mild example of the deep state. But these are the things that happen that kind of coalesce it. And the deep state isn't necessarily every single little aspect of the government. It's a very internal thing. It's a very small minority of people compared to the rest of the government, and even more so the rest of the country. A small minority of people with a vested interest to benefit themselves. Inevitably, it ends up creating a government that represses other people and represses their ideals and their utopian desires, and robs them of their wealth and their resources. Because there's a handful of people that become extremely greedy. Now, I just gave you a handful of historical examples. Now you know for a fact you can do research of yourself and see where you can find it in historical examples. Maybe in the Roman government, maybe in the ancient Chinese government. You'll find plenty of examples of it, because this is a thing that we humans do throughout all of history. In my view, we're all fallen, but a less religious way to put it is that to be human is to err. And this is just a natural thing that we do. We create our own organizations, our own cliques within our own systems, and we do it solely with the intent to benefit ourselves. The deep state's not like some sort of a weird conspiracy theory. It's not some sort of a weird nut job thing where like alien lizard people are invading and they've taken over the government. It's not that. This is a normal thing we humans do. We're just not as aware of it as probably our ancestors were, who actually understood the score that the king is in charge. He does not answer to us. He answers to him and his royal court. That's all. But anyways, guys, this was a brief concept video I put out on the deep state. Like I said, this will probably be a series. And this is just going an overview of what the deep state actually is, and giving you just a couple examples of what it kind of looks like. I'm going to go into more in-depth into certain aspects of the deep state. We're going to talk about certain features of it, and maybe go over some more historical examples and some more modern-day examples of what that ends up looking like. So stay tuned, guys. Check y'all later. Another beautiful day on the Roy Durham Show. Can't wait to see you guys. Love y'all. Share, subscribe, like. Goodbye.